welcome to the Manic, Pixie Dream Vlog. I'm your host, Caroline Georges, and welcome today. So I wanted to talk more about the Femme Fatale. I want to talk more about my situation. So here's the thing. Okay, so this is what happened. Like, I needed to elaborate more on this. I did speak to my sexual assailant in comedy. I spoke to him. I had a mutual friend. I asked my mutual friend, hey, would you want to use your friendship with my sexual assailant to help me with something? And he was like, what do you want help with? And I was like, I want to talk to him, and I want to forgive him, and I want to confront him, and I want to tell him how his behavior affected me and what it did to me, and I want him to listen, and I want him to acknowledge that he hurt me, and I want him to apologize. I wanted this guy to see how hurtful his behavior towards women is. And I also didn't want to, so I went to the Laugh Factory. I got invited to the show at the Laugh Factory, and I went to the Laugh Factory, and so there's this comic who's like this Irish comic, and he's friends with my sexual assailant, and he saw me come into the room, and he got up and he left the room. He gave me a look, he got up and left the room. And that made me feel really anxious. And it made me feel like I was being, someone was punishing me for being sexually assaulted. That's what it made me feel like. And then I saw another comic who also has, you know, a certain amount of notability in the comedy industry. And he's friends with my sexual assailant. And the way this guy looked at me, he looked at me like he wanted to hit me. It was, I was scared I was going to see my sexual assailant. I was terrified, and I saw a guy that I thought looked like him a little bit, and I was freaked out and stuff like that. So that whole night going to a show at the Laugh Factory, it was just really not fun. It was really hard. And then I just sort of realized, like, just how crazy this is. This is really crazy. This is really fucking crazy. In any other place of business, this would never be allowed. This would never be allowed. Would this be allowed? Because when it comes to comedy, I'm still just an intern. And my sexual assailant is an employee. He's working and he's being paid, and he performs at the Laugh Factory, he performs at the Improv, and he's a regular at both of those clubs. So basically, the way I think the Me Too movement wanted things to work, and this is what my understanding of it was. So comedians, actors, and film people, they're public figures, right? If you work in entertainment, you're a public figure. You're somebody who administers to the public through entertainment, by being an entertainer. So if you go around sexually assaulting girls, you should be fired from being a public figure, and the way you get fired from being a public figure is by letting the public know who you are and what you're doing as a public figure, and how you're administrating yourself towards other people in your business as a public figure. And the public can decide this person shouldn't be working, this person should be fired from his job as a comedian, as an actor, as a whatever, right? As a singer, whatever. The public gets to decide that. And that's how it works in entertainment. And that was what I believed was what was going to happen, and that was how these situations were going to be contained and handled from now on. That when women were victimized by men in the entertainment industry, they were going to be fired. These men were going to be called out and fired by the public. And that was what I thought was justifiable in my situation with my sexual assailant. I thought he should have been fired for being a public figure. I thought he should have been fired. And I thought I believed the people that had the right to do that were the public, were the people that were going to pay money on shows that he was on, and wouldn't want to do that knowing what he did, right? So everyone's all on the same page as to how this works. But in my situation, I'm worried and I'm scared that because I spoke out against my my sexual assailant because I spoke out against him and because I was actively warning girls in other female comics about him. It was the right thing to do. It was the justifiable thing to do, and it was my right as a woman to do, as a victim and as a feminist and as an advocate for women. That was within my rights of doing, and is what I should have been doing. As a victim and as an activist, that is what I should have been doing. I was doing all of the right things as a woman who had been victimized by a man sexually, and then also as an activist who stands in defense of women that go through that. But nobody wants my sexual assailant to be fired. He has a lot of friends with a lot of power and influence, and none of them want to see this man fired. And they know that there are actions I can take that can get this man fired. And they know that the more exposure I get as a comic, the more of a following I get as a comic, the more authority I will have to destroy this man as a public figure, destroy this man's standing with the public, and ruin his career as a public figure working as a comedian. This is how it is. This is how it is. This is how it is for women in the industry. If we are sexually assaulted, it's over. It's fucking over. Unless we can live in our silence and thrive while living in our silence, then unless that's for the sake of my career, I should have stayed silent. I shouldn't have done that. But as an activist, I know I did the right thing. I take nothing back. I did everything right. I did everything that I should have done to make the situation right with women. Because he wouldn't, because his friends wouldn't. I did. I protected women. I did. That was me. That was me protecting women. Not them. Not men. Not men who should be protecting women. Not men who should be standing in between women and this man. These men should have been standing between me and this man. But that's not what happened. So now I have to realize, I am realizing my life is going to be a lot harder than it is already. It's going to be a lot harder than me sitting with my suffering and sitting in silence over what happened to me. It's going to be a lot harder than that now. Because I took action, it's going to be a lot harder it's going to be a lot harder for me now. It doesn't matter how hard I work. It doesn't matter how funny I am. It doesn't matter how talented I am. There are going to be male comics who are friends with my sexual assailant who are not going to want anything to do with me and are not going to want to support my career in any way because of what he did to me and because of what I can do to him in return by being given power and influence in the comedy community, which I would only use to help women and myself. But I am an activist, and I do stand for women, and that's what I did. And if this is the outcome, if this is the punishment, if this is what I get for doing that, then so be it. So be it. There are still plenty of good men and women in the comedy industry who will see me and my victimhood and will help me and support me because I am hardworking, because I am talented, and because I am fucking funny. And they will not allow for me being sexually assaulted and taking action afterwards to stop me from succeeding in comedy. They will not allow that to happen. I believe that. There are still plenty of good men and women in comedy who will side with the victim, who will stand with the victim, for which there have been numerous victims who have come forward with stories of being victimized by this man because they rejected his advances, bullied, harassed, and yes, assaulted. He tried to take off a woman's shirt. He tried to take off her bra while she was telling him no, and she was telling him to stop, and he did not take no for an answer, and he did not stop. But this woman believes me, and she's had an experience with him, and she still follows him on Instagram, you know? She's still friends with him. She's still connected with him. She's doing what she needs to do, and I respect that, and I understand that, and I respect her, and I understand her. But it wasn't my choice to do that. It wasn't my choice to sit in silence. I don't know. I'm just going to keep working really hard. I do 2 hours and 10 minutes of comedy a week minimum. Or when I was doing comedy before quarantine, I was doing 2 hours and 10 minutes of comedy a week minimum. And I was getting good, and I was getting better. And I'm going to keep getting better until I'm undeniably funny, until I'm undeniably good, until that nobody could have any excuse in the world to keep me from that stage other than I was sexually assaulted and spoke out against it. To protect women. But see, going back to the Femme Fatale, you see, there's a lot of men who could make the argument that that's not what I'm doing, that my intentions weren't to protect women, that my intentions were to get attention. My intentions were to try and use the Me Too movement to get attention, which women have. Amber Heard did. Somebody could look at Amber Heard and what she did, which was the same thing that I was doing, but for different reasons, and they can say that my reasons were hers, and that her reasons were mine. That were bitter, toxic women who want to destroy men for personal gain. Like a femme fatale, which I am not. I was an intern in the comedy community, and I was sexually assaulted by an employee of the comedy community. In the comedy business, decided to keep their employee and fire their intern. That's what it feels like. It feels like these men, the Irish comic and the other comic and stuff, I feel like they want me fired. They want me to be fired. They want my career to be ruined over this, not his. And that has happened to a lot of women before me. A lot of women before me. But the thing is with a femme fatale, the one thing about a femme fatale is that she is rotten to her core. She's evil. She is purely cold-blooded evil, right? So a woman who is not evil, who takes on the costume of a femme fatale in the story, like I have with stripping, right? I can be accused of being rotten to the core, and there's a narrative that will suit that. There is a clear narrative that I can play the part in that would suit that, right? That I am a bitter, toxic femme fatale who wants to destroy men. And that would make sense to a lot of people. And there's probably things that I've said and things that I've done that would support that. Why do I feel like my guns are still up and loaded in defense of myself over this situation? It doesn't feel like it's over. It doesn't feel like it's done. It feels like I still have a long way to go before I'm fully redeemed of this situation of being the victim of sexual assault. I had no one. I was all alone. And I'm sorry, but that piece of shit picked the wrong girl to do that to. He just did. He should have picked a girl who would have felt he was entitled to her silence. He should have picked that girl. He didn't pick that girl. He made them a mistake and picked me. And he paid for it a little bit. Women started holding a mirror up to his face and showing him who he is and what he's doing, and he had to see that finally. But with the Femme Fatale, because I'm really obsessed with that whole trope. I've become obsessed with it because I do feel like in the story of my life, I could be painted as that, or I could be painted as a manic pixie dream girl, but I can't really be painted as much else. You know what I mean? For everything that sums up what I am, those are the two tropes that apply to me, the Femme Fatale and the Manic Pixie Dream Girl. Which I know this might all seem sort of asinine, but still it's pretty fascinating to me, because the fact that the Femme Fatale cannot survive in the story. She has to be eliminated. The threat of her has to be eliminated. So has the threat of me being able to destroy a man, even though my intentions are not for money and power, they are to protect women and they are to protect myself. I just think it's so wild and crazy that I am in a situation in my life where I have severe PTSD, and that if I want to continue a career in comedy, I have to face my sexual assailant on a regular basis and have to pretend everything is okay, that nothing happened, that everything is fine. And I mean, my emotions, honestly, after I saw him and after we talked, I felt so much guilt. I felt so much guilt that I wanted to hurt him. I felt like I literally felt like somebody had put a gun in my hand, a loaded gun in my hand, and I could have shot that gun and hurt somebody, and seriously hurt somebody. And I could have, you know what I mean? I had these accusations are powerful. Accusations of rape and sexual misconduct and sexual assault are powerful. That was a powerful gun in my hand that I could have used to hurt him and destroy him. And the fact that I was going to made me feel horrible. It made me feel so much regret. It made me feel so almost afraid of myself. Sometimes do you ever just look at who you are and what you do and what you're capable of, and you're just scared of yourself? How do we protect women? How? I keep asking that. I've been asking that all this time. How do we protect women? It would seem the best thing to do is is to have these men removed from being around women and being trusted amongst women. Have that removed from them. That would protect us. That would help us. It would ruin a man's career in comedy, but still, wouldn't women be protected then finally? Wouldn't women be finally safe? Isn't that what should be important? And don't you think that there's something horribly wrong with society and its constructs that it's not? It is a man's world, and men have declared time and time again, you have a right to rape you. With every untested rape kit sitting on the shelves of police stations. Is men saying we have the right to rape you because no one's going to care if you scream anyway. And if men don't have the right to rape us, then why aren't there consequences for the men that do? Why are there not consequences for the men that do? And when there are, why are the people who ensure that these men face serious consequences for the severity of their crimes they have committed against women? I forgot what I was going to say. Anyways. But the threat of me being a femme fatale has to be eliminated in this story. And at this point, I don't see that happening. I wanted to do the right thing when I didn't know what the right thing was to do. I wanted to do the right thing. And I don't know whether or not I've done the right thing with what I've done. Forgive him and let him move on and let him repair his reputation. Or if I did the wrong thing by letting him do that, because I am allowing him room to continue to commit crimes against women. When if I had taken action and exposed him on a grander level than I already have, he wouldn't have been able to do that. And God is my witness, if he does do something to another woman after that conversation he and I had, if he does do some fucked up shit to other women after that conversation I had, and which bought my silence, that conversation bought my silence. I will consider it my fault and my responsibility if a woman is abused by him again. I will consider it my fault and my responsibility. And God is my witness. If that happens, I will not be silent. I don't care if every comedian stops speaking to me. I don't care if every comedian in Los Angeles gets up out of the room when I enter it. I don't care if every comedy agent and manager blocks my phone number. I don't care if every comedy club in Los Angeles closes its doors to me and tells me I'm not allowed to go there anymore. I don't care. I will make sure that this man is eliminated from the public stage so that he can't hurt women. He cannot use comedy and his position in comedy to hurt women again, because that was what he was doing, and that power should have been taken away from him, and it wasn't. The power he has over women, that he had over women when he was doing the fucked up shit that he did to me and other women, he still has. And he can still use it to hurt women. And all I have is his word that he won't. But that man, that Irish comic who got up out of the room when I entered it, thanks. I wear that as a badge of honor. That's a medal around my neck, dude. The comic who stared daggers at me when he and I locked eyes, thanks. Loved that. I'm glad I had people like you doing that. I'm glad I showed the world who you really are by you doing that, by you looking at me that way. I'm glad I showed the world who you really are. You look at sexual assault victims who tried their damnedest to help themselves and help women like you wanted to fucking hit her. You are the kind of man that looks at women that way. Women who have been abused and assaulted and hurt. And I wear that as a badge of honor. Because unlike most men, it seems, I stand for women and I protect women. Anyways, that's my vlog for today. Well, okay, like, we all watch Tiger King, right? So, like, Carol Baskin clearly killed her husband. You know, I'm just gonna, woman to woman, like, I'm just gonna say it, like, you know, if I mean, as a woman, whenever a woman kills her husband, I'm always just kind of like, well, what did he do? You know what I mean? Like, what was his deal? Like, was he cheating on her? Was he abusive towards her? I mean, there has to be a reason. Sometimes it's like there's not. He's just a nice guy, and he married a psychopath. But, like, sometimes it's really like, oh, maybe he kind of had it coming a little bit. And in this situation, I just think that, I don't know, the guy that got fed to the tigers didn't seem like that great a guy. You know what I mean? So I'm just kind of thinking, like, yeah, you know what I mean? So she killed him. So what? But at the same time, I'm kidding. I'm not actually like that. I'm kidding. Like, sometimes I feel like, sometimes I get comments on these, and it's like, somebody will, like, be offended by what I said, but it's like, I'm a comic, and I'm kidding, and I'm talking about social issues and politics, and, like, you know, in movies and television and entertainment and comedy, from the perspective of someone whose intentions are to be funny and to joke around and stuff like that. But I feel like I say shit to be funny and to joke around, and then people are like, you know what I mean? Like, you're crazy, you're insane, you're a psychopath. And it's like, I'm kidding. But back to Carol Baskin. Okay, so, like, but everyone is just, like, coming down on Carol Baskin, right? Like, she killed her husband, justice for her husband, and that sort of thing. But then they're like, the same people are turning around and looking at the Tiger King, who is equally a horrible person. He is, I hold him fully responsible for the death of poor Travis, his second husband, who shot himself on accident after lamenting that he, like, can't leave the farm, the tiger farm. He can't, like, do anything. He can't go anywhere. He can't get a job. He has no freedom. That he's completely under the thumb of Joe Exotic. I'm sorry, but just, like, the fact that this guy named himself Joe Exotic, guilty. Guilty of all charges. Sorry, just that alone. Guilty. 22 years isn't enough, you know? But it's just like, Joe Exotic, like, he should be in prison for 22 years. Like, he still should be in prison for 22 years. He was a horrible person who did a lot of horrible things. And people like that should be in jail, you know? I'm sorry that Carol Baskin isn't, but it's like they're equating Carol Baskin's freedom after she killed her husband to an injustice that Joe Exotic went to prison for 22 years when he fucking should have. You know what I mean? So it's just like, and it's all the same people. All the same people wanting a new investigation of Carol Baskin's husband being murdered are the same people that are saying, hashtagging Free Joe Exotic. You know? That doesn't make any sense. Why are they coming down on the woman for not receiving justice while they're supporting a man who did get justice? That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. It's because Carol Baskin is a femme fatale and the threat of her wasn't eliminated, and Joe Exotic is, like, has this folk hero aspect about him. So it's like, it's all, so much of what we think and what we do isn't about right and wrong. It's about the narrative that we already know, that we've been told time and again in books and movies. The folk hero should be free from prison, and the femme fatale should be killed or go to jail, you know? But that's not life. Life isn't a movie all the time. Life isn't a book. That's not how shit works. Sometimes the femme fatale does get off scot-free, and sometimes the lovable folk hero does go to jail for 22 years, and that's just how shit is. Just because somebody's a lovable folk hero doesn't mean they're not a fucked up piece of shit who should be in prison which she is, and we should be glad. We're not identifying human beings by their thoughts, feelings, and actions. We're identifying them by who they are in the story. And in the story of Joe Exotic, he is the underdog. He is the folk hero, and therefore he deserves freedom. That's not how it is. That's not real life. Sometimes the femme fatale does survive. And it is unnerving. But in my story, I want it to be revealed that I am a victim of circumstances who did her best. Because in the story of the femme fatale, she either has to be killed, go to prison, or be revealed to have not been a femme fatale at all. So if there's any hope to my life being lived the way I hope to live it, I have to be revealed to be not a femme fatale at all and just a victim of my circumstances. Anyways, that is my vlog for today. Like and subscribe and share. Have a lovely day. Bye.